All right. So in my we militarized the Japanese thing, and I'm standing behind it. Okay, but it's also provocative. There's a lot of things to history. So Donnie Forte has stepped up in a long series of comments. Finally, gotten to the meat of the issue, which is his point for an alternate. There is that the British had Queen Victoria was the biggest drug dealer to date. I mean, everybody's heard about the Opium Wars, but it's just amazing. Okay, China tried to keep it out. Basically, the way it looked to me, short version is, the UK just attacked them enough to create an open wound, which they could send opium in through. And they knew it wasn't a good product. They knew it was bad. It was all to fuck with them. Drug pusher. Literally, but the point of a gun. So Donnie's pointing out, it wasn't like the Japanese were in another world. They knew some of these things were going on. They had an internal debate. It's not like they'd been closed off from the world forever. And he's saying that they were feeling pressure already because of the Opium War. They were already... Well, I guess he's objecting to the notion that Perry introduced them to these ships in a sense. But he certainly did by going them, taking them in the harbor. It made big news, okay? So his point is they're kind of better off. It's kind of like Queen Liliuokalani turned over the islands to the U.S. and she did it to avoid bloodshed. And I always wondered if she shouldn't have just fought, because they were calling the bluff. A lot of people said, oh, we wouldn't have invaded, blah, blah, blah. But I pretty much think she probably made the right decision. And does that mean it's a good thing because somebody else would have done it worse, in a worse way? Like if they hadn't started dealing with us, they would have had to deal with the British or get opium injected into Japan. It's kind of like if somebody goes to a really bad neighborhood where people are always getting raped and killed, and he gets a hold of this person and rapes him but doesn't kill him. You were lucky. It was going to be worse. It just doesn't work real well as a, saying it was okay what was done. The thing about America is that our hypocrisy, hypocrisy is an odd thing. And when I was young, my first ethical ideas were one is just try to be polite. The golden rule is good, but even that is like, well, you're doing to other people what you want done. Maybe you want other people, to tease you in good nature, and you do that, and they don't take it right. You know what I mean? So you just try to be polite and things like this. It's just, and so that comes down to don't be a hypocrite, basically, as well. And with the, that's the golden rule, being polite, And yet I realized later that, of course, people that are growing spiritually are going to have ethics. They don't always achieve. That's the point of having those ethics. So when you say, hey, you can head check. Hey, I didn't achieve my ethical goal. Time to head check what's going on. So is it hypocrisy? Well, I don't know. If you're giving those ethics and you don't intend just to live up to them, then that's just wanton hypocrisy. But what about in a national thing where some people are pushing these ethics of spreading democracy, don't really believe them, and the people that they're talking that bullshit to or voting for them, they really do believe them? Which will win in the end? I mean, so you have some American actual democratic traditions, of course. And it might well have been better to be raped by someone whose child was a real Democrat. I don't know. So I'm not going to correct my other videos, Donnie, but you were adding to them. You were making it better informed. I will make it better informed. We can go back to Asia. I mean, who really screwed up Asia? Like, if we hadn't gone over there, would Asia have been screwed up? Yeah, they've been raped and fucked over. Would there have been World War II in the Pacific with Japan hating our guts? No. They would have hated the British. They could have been, It could have gone down different. But mostly it's not saying America's the worst thing in the world, everybody else is great. No, not at all. I'm pretty sure I've made videos too about, Europeans. Europeans like to talk about how bad the US is. They're the ones that raped the whole world. Okay? In the West, we all have these kinds of crimes. A lot of smaller countries have very similar crimes where they've done similar things regionally. Often, though, it's the puppet government we put in place that did that. So you can't get away from the special role that Europe has played. But China had wars and conquest too, and they held for 10,000 years in this. Yes, everybody, there's a history of war. That's the funny thing too, like in the Middle East, they've been fighting for thousands of years. Where haven't they been fighting for thousands of years? Everywhere. Anyway, it is an interesting addition, so, a big part of that, my point there is that we had to get into World War II because they just attacked us out of nowhere. No, we'd had a 100-year relationship with them. It was the opposite of out of nowhere. When they surprise attacked the Russians in the Japan's war with Russia, I thought that was splendid. Because we were isolationists, but they blew us up out of nowhere. They popped our balloon. We weren't really isolationists, so these are important factors. Probably the bigger deal is because, we did this genocidal thing with the Indians. It took decades to do. It was just terrible. It was the Holocaust to the nth degree. You just can't ignore that, but people do, and it's so confusing. There's so many different people killed, and it's the whole thing about tragedies turning into statistics. I think the Philippines is a really good example. It's easier to put your finger on, really. We did things as bad as the Nazis. That's all I'm saying. Let's just face that. I'm still an American. I'm still going to go on being an American with that. We're going to pay reparations. I don't think it's about paying reparations. What about partnerships? What about good faith? What about putting some good offices onto some bad faith? We're not the only ones. Other people will give us concessions too because they have these things to rectify as well. I mean, it's like, I think you guys people are worried about, we'll just get mired in guilt. Get rid of your guilt as a way to process this stuff. There's responsibility and contrition. There's all kinds of other emotions. Guilt is just a self-flagellation. It's like those guys that run along the street in their religious parade, whipping and flogging themselves. It doesn't make you a better person. Contrition can. Guilt is this poison emotional brew that you take to make you vomit because then you feel better when you hurt yourself. It's self-harm.